Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our webinar on doubling your financial institution sales to SMEs. For all of you who have participated in our previous webinars, welcome back. And to all of you who are attending for the first time, thank you for joining us, and we hope that you can attend more of our webinars throughout the year. Our upcoming webinars can be found on our website, but we have 3 upcoming webinars for April, May, and June. So please feel free if there is something of interest to you. We're going to be sending again some notifications. And on a technical note, please, if you have any experiences with technology, technical issues, please contact Lynn, sending her an email. She will try to get you a solution as soon as possible. But I don't want to take more time, and I am very pleased to have Sandy Vachi leading this sales technique webinar today. Sandy brings more than 35 years of experience over 50 countries in 4 continents. He started his career with Procter & Gamble in Canada, and then he worked in Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, Cadbury International, Citibank Global Consumer Bank, and Raiffeisen International. He retired recently from his executive work as a CEO of Austria at the Royal Bank of Scotland and joined Credit Bank of Moscow as the chairman of the board. As of 2018, he's mostly doing advisory work in Europe and North America and has been helping a lot of SMEs in Africa and Asia to improve their business practices. In addition of being a full-time consultant, he's a senior lecturer at several MBA schools and is author of 4 business books on best sales management, CRM, and channel development practices around the world. So we're very happy to have Sandy here. And Sandy, I will not take any more time from you, and I'll let you start the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. And good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, whichever time zone you might be, where you're calling in from. Thank you very much, CapPlus, for the nice introduction. If anybody wants to know more about me, you can Google me. I did it about half an hour ago. There were 126,000 hits in 0.29 seconds coming up to Sandy Vachi. So I'm not going to challenge Google. I don't know more about myself than Google does. So if you'd like to know more about me, I suggest Google is the way to go. So let's get into sales and what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about building a very, very efficient sales organization. Now, the focus is on financial institutions and specifically on targeting SME, small, medium enterprise clients. But the ideas that we are going to talk about are very general, okay? So hopefully anybody else who is not specifically in SME sales can also benefit from it. Because, you know, when we talk about sales, if there is just one thing I'd like you to take away, it would be this. Please let it be a conscious, planned effort how you are setting up your sales organization. All too many times, companies have sales and it just kind of happens, it just kind of evolves. Now, we need to ask ourselves some basic questions and we need to plan well. And the 3 questions that we'll talk about today is, the first one is, what does it mean to have sales capability? What are the components of sales? Unless we know what we need to have to actually be able to say that, yes, we have sales ability, we don't know what to build. So that's the first one, the components of sales. And once we have that, where do we focus? Because many times companies say, oh, well, I want better sales, I just send my people to sales training. And maybe it's not the training that they like, maybe it's the processes, maybe it's the support, maybe it's something else. So we need to know how to identify where to focus. So that's the first block we talk about. Then the next one is, once we know what we need in order to have sales and sales capability, okay, what is the model that we employ to do sales? And this is an interesting one. I don't know if many companies actually consciously think about, am I using hunter-farmer, or am I using the first come, first serve? Am I using permission-based sales processes? It's a very basic question. There are essentially 6 dominant sales models that companies can use. So we'll go through that and we'll spend some time on discussing them. What is the best model for any given company to get the most out of those sales capability items to have the highest efficiency in sales activities? And then if we got the components of sales together, we know what models we use or model we use, then we need to know, okay, so how do we kind of turn it into an automated process? How do we build a sales machine, something that will guarantee success? That if we use that, if we have the process in place, success will be inevitable. You see, I do present at MBA schools, and we talk a lot about making sure that we set objectives. And we don't talk about the process, but we talk about the end result. And that is great. But you know, when you have a new sales guy come into your organization and you just tell the guy, listen, you got to have X sales within 2 months, he won't know what to do. So what we need to do is we need to build a framework that will guide this person towards achieving those objectives. So those are 3 things we are going to talk about. And because time is short, what we'll do is, for the first one, in terms of components of sales and where to focus, I will show you what are the key components, and we'll leave with you a template that you can take away, a self-diagnostic template on the key items, and you can do your own analysis back home and decide for yourself where you need to focus. On sales model, we'll talk a little bit more because that's an often ignored area. So I felt that we need to dig into that. And on sales machine, building an activity plan. Now that is a very detailed undertaking. It will normally take about half a day to do it in an interactive workshop. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and we'll leave a few slides, templates for you to use to do it at home. And then hopefully roll it out in the organization. I will show you how it works and what the results are if you do it well. And obviously you will have my email address at the end. So any questions, please just let me know. Okay, so let's get into it. The first one, components of sales. When can we say that we actually have sales capability in a company? There are 6 or 7 essential elements of all of that. And the first 4 are the kind of classical sales components. Sales organization. Do we actually have an organization? Is there somebody in charge of sales? If somebody tells me, yeah, there is a guy sitting on the board who's responsible for sales, or all business unit leaders have sales responsibility, my answer is no, it's not good enough. I need to have one dedicated person who's actually responsible for that. If we are talking about SME sales, I want to know who is the person who's taking responsibility for organizing all of that, looking after that, tracking that, who is the guy in charge. So we need to have the organization in place. That is the HR component, the human resources. Then sales management. And here I'm not talking about HR and buddies. Here I'm talking about the management components like objective setting, tracking, monitoring, rewards, coordinating, the different things. That's managing the whole sales setup, the whole sales machine. Processes. Do we have a well-defined process for acquiring new customers? Do we have a well-defined process for mining the customer relationship and getting the most out of that, for recovering loans? Well, usually on loan recovery, we have a process, but in the business building areas, many times people say, yeah, we have a process. And then I want to see it written down. A process doesn't exist unless it's written down, unless people know it and people follow it. So do we have a documented process to do things? Then the next one is skills. Can our people follow the processes? Do they know how to do it, how to get the most out of them? So these are the 4 key sales components. And then when you think about sales, it would not happen without having the channels to go through. It would not happen without getting the sales support, marketing support, sales tools, etc. And what I call sales support on steroids, which is CRM, customer relationship management. So those are the components. Now, How do we decide then where to focus? Well, there is a very simple template that one can use. The template does not include channels, support, and CRM. CRM we talk a little bit about on April the 11th when we talk about big data and how to monetize things and how to embrace digital transformation. The others are hanging out a little bit. If anybody has any questions, again, please just email me or ask me at the end of this webinar. But here is the way how you can do it. If you see the four key classical sales components, the organization, the management, the processes, and the skills, you can just very simply look at four statements and say, for example, under organization, I don't know, we have the sales director and direct report positions filled. Yes or no? To what extent do we have that? Okay, so you just put in a percentage agreement that exists in your organization. Or, you know, we have local marketing plan to support local sales activities. Yes, no, to what extent do we have that? Okay, so you put in the actual percentages, and then you put in the difference versus 100%. You add those up, and either use the absolute numbers or you take an average. And then you will end up with four numbers in the four key areas highlighted in yellow. And when you look at that, you can very quickly see, okay, where are the weak areas? If we wish to build sales capability, where do we need to focus? So that is the first step. Okay, let's take a look at our overall sales setup. What elements do we have in place? To what extent? Where do we need to focus? So maybe it's the processes where we need to pay attention. Maybe it's the sales management part. Maybe it's skills training. Maybe. Okay, but the point is that we made a conscious effort of testing, evaluating, and then building the capabilities. So much for the sales components. Let's carry on to the next item, which is, okay, let's assume that we have all these sales components in place, more or less. Let's assume that we fixed the gaps. Now, how are we going to employ these components? What is the model, the sales model that we are going to use? Now, I mentioned to you in the beginning that there are 6 basic sales models. And usually these are they kind of develop. They just happen magically. Companies, the best companies plan what they use, but in many cases what I see is that it just kind of evolved. So let's take a look at very quickly, and then I'm going to ask you what model you are using and where you are in terms of understanding sales models. So the 6 different models, first come, first serve. The first come, first serve model means that we basically are open for business. Whoever comes in, we will serve. It's a reactive model. It relies on physical presence, and whoever wants to take their business to us, we will listen and we will serve them. First come, first serve. Now, the hunter-farmer model is a more proactive model. We have people who go out there, these are the hunters, get new customers, they bring them into the organization and they hand them over to a farmer, to the person who will then build the relationship and exploit and mine the relationship and keep doing the best for the customer and keep generating incremental revenue for the company. Hunter-farmer, so we bring in the customer or the prospect, turn them into customer, and then we build the relationship, but it's separated out in the process. The next model is the finder-keeper model. The finder-keeper is that we still go out there. It's a proactive sales model. We go out there, we get the prospects, turn them into customers, but whoever got them will have them for life. So if I bring in a new customer, that is quote unquote my customer, I'm responsible for the relationship. I'm not handing it over to anybody in the company. I carry on with this person or with this company, and if there is any problem on the credit side, I will be the first one to step in and try to handle it. I am the single source of contact, okay? So that's the finder-keeper model. The one-size-fits-all model is when we have people handling different segments. For example, an SME segment and a small corporate segment. There is a big overlap there. Or an SME segment and a retail consumer segment. There is a big overlap there. So the people that we have are very well trained to satisfy all the needs of anybody, be it corporate need, small business need, personal need, whatever. This is a one-size-fits-all model. The push-pull model is used when we have to attack the market at two levels. We have key account managers who build relationship at the head office level, and we have people serving or servicing the needs of the underlying entities of this corporate unit. So companies that deal with big retail organizations usually have this model. They have a designated key account manager who deals with the headquarters, and then they have their salespeople going out to the individual stores to handle the sales issues. This is the push-pull model, bipolar. And then we have the permission-based process. The permission-based process is primarily a corporate process. This means that we are working with larger entities and we need to get to the final decision maker, but we cannot start there. So we start wherever and we keep walking up in the organization until we finally get to the final decision maker to make the sales pitch. And at every step of the sales process, we are shooting for the next step. So we are building permission to proceed. That's why it's called the permission-based process. Those are the 6 essential sales models that one can use, certainly in the financial services area, to handle prospects and customers. And here comes my first question, a little exercise, a little poll. Let's take a look at 3 different options. Option A is, yes, we have one type of sales model for SME sales. The second one is we actually use more than one type of model. And the third one is we use the one-size-fits-all, which handles everything. So think about what do you have in your organization? And I give it back to the CapPlus people to tell you how exactly it's done, because I understand that you can have your input.
Thank you. So we're having a quick poll. So how does your institution approach SME sales based on the models that Sandy just mentioned? We have one type of model for the SME sale, we have more than one, or we use the one-size-fits-all approach. So we're going to keep the polls open for around like 30 to 40 seconds until we get all your inputs, and then we're going to share the results and we can discuss them back with Sandy. So just choose one of the 3 options based on whatever you do in your own organization. We're getting most of the replies now, so we can close the polls. We can show the results. Okay, so 68% we use more than one type of model for SME, 26% we have one type only, and only 5% uses the one-size-fits-all. Sandy, these are the results, so I'll leave it up to you if you have anything else to say about it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now, I'm very glad that only 5% chose a one-size-fits-all, because that is a very expensive sales model to use and fraught with issues. I'm also very glad that most of you said that you actually have one. No, sorry, 26% said A, right?
No.
CapPlus? No?
So the 68% was that they use more than one type model.
Yes, okay, more than one type of sales. Okay, yes. So then I'm not that glad. Having one specific sales model for SME sales brings a certain focus into the organization and allows us to make it work very efficiently. There may be times when we need to mix models, but it's always a good idea to pick the best one and perfect what we do based on that. So when I see that almost 70% are using more than one type, let's return to that after we review the different models and see, or you take away the question in your mind to check whether those more than one types should actually be collapsed into one dominant sales model, because that is the way to really superb efficiency. And one type of sales model, if you choose it well, tends to be the best, the most efficient. But before we get there, I have another question for you, is whether you use more than one type or you use only one type, you would have a dominant type of SME sales model. And let me take out the one-size-fits-all, because not too many people use that. And let me take out the push-pull, just to keep things simple, because the push-pull is really for very specific situations. And let's take a look at the first come, first serve, hunter-farmer, finder-keeper, and permission-based process. My question to you is, which one is your dominant sales model? If you use one, then obviously that's the dominant. If you use more than one, pick the one that you use most of the time. Poll is open.
Thank you, Sandy. So please choose one of the four options. Your dominant model for SME sale is first come, first serve, hunter, farmer, finder, keeper, or permission-based process. We are collecting responses, and again, we're going to share the results once we collect all the responses. So we'll just keep the poll open for another 10 seconds as all the answers are coming in. And I think we can close the polls now. Okay, we have 52% finder keeper, 36% hunter farmer, and only 12% first come first serve. Sandy, these are the results as of now.
Nobody for permission-based process, right?
Nobody, no.
Okay, good. Now, that is again, that is somewhat expected, that this would be the result. Now, before we get into what the results mean, let's take a look at what these models really mean in detail, where the efficiencies come in or may go out the window, okay? And what model is best for which setup. So, first come, first serve. I mentioned that this is a reactive sales model. This is a very good model when I'm focusing on individuals, consumer banking. And when I have good physical coverage, strong brand image, strong awareness, and very good distribution channel setup, so I can catch people anywhere through any means. What I do is I have a very strong marketing push to bring people to my contact points, okay? And then I service them. The issue for SMEs is that small, medium enterprise people, these small businesses, like to do business at their own premises. And we should definitely go to their premises, otherwise we really don't know what we are dealing with. So this is not really the best model for SME segments. This is a good model for a big established bank that is targeting mass segments like consumer segments. For SMEs, a more proactive sales model usually works better. So this is the first come, first serve model. Again, large, established, well-known bank with full physical coverage, all the channels covered, strong marketing push to drive people to the contact points. Okay, so that's the first model. That's how it works. The hunter farmer is one of the two key proactive sales models. It's It can be very good for SMEs. And when we go back, C was finder keeper, B was hunter farmer, 36%, right?
Yes, correct.
So hunter farmer, it's a very efficient method of bringing in new people. It's very good for starting up. The extreme end of the hunter-farmer model is when we are using sales agents who may not even be employees of the bank. They are on full commission basis to bring in prospects, and then we mine those prospects and build a revenue stream based on that. So it's very good for building up, scale fast, quick share build. Okay, it's a good opportunity for new players. Some of the issues with this one is client service. We need to make sure that there is no break in the process when somebody is handed over to somebody else. The initial contact is with the hunter, and then it goes over to the farmer. So we need to make sure that client service is seamless. We need to make sure that the relationships are really well exploited, because again, there is a break point there at the handover. And referrals may be harder to get because, again, the person is dealing with two different people, two different key contacts at the organization instead of one. So there are some pros, building up scale fast, being very, very efficient, but we need to be very careful that we support it with the underlying processes really well. Otherwise, we can have issues with client service and also sometimes with credit quality. So the next one, the finder keeper, which, as I remember, was the dominant model among the participants. And indeed, guess what? The first point is I'm saying this is the most used methodology. Well, most companies use that. This is, we go out there, somebody gets the new customer, and then that is my customer to hold their hands, to exploit. There's very high quality customer service, good credit risk management, better client experience, but there is an issue with acquisition efficiency and sales overload. Think about it this way: you got a new salesperson, and this new salesperson has great potential. So this person is starting to build his or her client portfolio. Now, the bigger portfolio the person builds, the more potential credit issues we are facing. So the bigger the portfolio, the more time this person has to spend on first step credit process issues. That means that as the person gets more experienced and becomes more valuable to us as a sales generator, we are spending less and less of his or her time on actual sales. So just when the person could really deliver in sales, we are diverting their energy into credit risk management, into process management, into all sorts of other things, instead of focusing on proactive sales. And that is a key efficiency issue with the finder-keeper model. Let's go to the next one. One size fits all. Well, one size fits all is the model that is really dangerous. The issue is to have salespeople who can deliver in this model, you really need to do a lot of training. You are diluting focus. You need to train them in many different segments. It is usually more efficient to have a good referral process in place, because otherwise the training issues just become too much. And the people that you train will actually be very, very valuable to other companies. So they will be the first one to be poached. All in all, the one-size-fits-all is a dangerous model. I would suggest we stay away from it. Push-pull we talked about. I mentioned that this is usually when we have a key account manager and then we service the needs of the actual outlets. This is a very specific model, and we actually left it out from the options. And the permission-based sales process, as I mentioned, this is a corporate sales process. Anybody who uses a permission-based sales process is paying 6 times more for sales activities than they should. This comes from my own calculations. When I was at Citibank and we were looking at the kind of sales model we are going to implement as we are exploiting SME segments more and more, we compared the permission-based sales process with the more simplistic hunter, farmer, and finder-keeper models, and we found that it would cost us 6 times more in acquisition cost to bring in a new client with this model than with the other simpler hunter, farmer, finder, keeper models. So that is not something that I would recommend. Now, the key options, sorry?
Sorry, I just wanted to do a time check. We have another 15 minutes before we go into the Q&A.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Yes, I'm tracking on that. So, so the key models are really the hunter, farmer, and finder, keeper. Those are the two essential models. And I talked about the differences. Here are some statistics. When you are looking at the finder-keeper model and the hunter-farmer model, and you look at the number of clients you can have per relationship manager or per salespeople, with the finder-keeper model, it's somewhere between 50 to just over 100. With the hunter-farmer model, it is much higher, 150 to 250 that you can have. So you can see how much more efficient the hunter-farmer model is. My point to you is not to just go for the hunter-farmer model. My point to you is to take a look at your organization, look at your setup, look at your model, you look at your market, and then please think about it. Think about the 6 different types and make a conscious decision. That's my key point actually on everything. Just plan it consciously and decide what you want to use. If I was starting up an SME bank today, I would use the hunter-farmer model, obviously, because I just want to get there fast. But you need to decide for your setup what is the more efficient, and based on the points that I put into the slides, you can then think about the kind of extra support you need to put in place to make sure that the model works well. Okay? So now that we have a full view of what are the key components of sales capability, what are the different sales models that we can use to actually use those components, then the final question is, okay, so how can we make this work really, really efficiently? In other words, how can we build a sales machine? Because a sales machine means that I am in full control. I know at the beginning of the year whether or not I'm going to make my targets at the end of the year, at the end of the month, at the end of the week. You see, when I went on to the Credit Bank of Moscow and I was Mr. Chairman of the board, well, guess what? Mr. Chairman goes and visits the branches. And I always ask the branch managers, okay, so what are your targets for the year? And of course, everybody would know that because they were preparing for my visit. So, yes, sir, we are going to have this many new customers, this kind of footings or credit and this and that. Woo, they knew it all. So then came the next question. Okay, so tell me, what do you think? Are you going to make those numbers? Well, okay, it's a very stupid question. There's obviously only one answer to that. When the chairman of the board asks you, are you going to make your numbers? There's only one acceptable answer. And the answer is, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. So everybody said, yes. But actually, I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in their answer to the third question, because the third question was, okay, so you think you're going to make it, so why do you think so? And that's where I could tell if they actually control their business or not. Because if somebody tells me that, oh, we always made it, oh, we are very good, I have the best people, we know our business, sorry, that doesn't cut it. I'm not interested. I want to know what kind of program you have in place, how you plan your activities to guarantee the results, how you track it, how you're going to intervene and fix things so that the results are guaranteed. So in other words, I'm looking for the machine. I'm looking for something that will guarantee the results. And the way to guarantee the results is actually to work with the so-called leading indicators, the indicators that predict success or failure ahead of time. Because you see, when you get to the end of the quarter and you see the business results, it's too late to do anything about them. You need to know whether or not you will get to those results. So the way to do it is we take a look at where we want to get to at the end, and we work back. Okay, to get this level of revenue or profit, which is a lagging indicator because it tells us after the fact if we have done everything well, what do we need to have in terms of sales, which is the current indicator? This is like the heartbeat of the business. And to get to this point, what do we need to do? These are the activities. What activities we need to do and with what efficiency we need to convert one activity into another. Now, you might be familiar with the so-called sales funnel, but the sales funnel is just a very simple tracking tool looking at what is happening. What I'm talking about is actually planning all these things. And when we start planning this and we have an activity plan, then we can see if something is not happening, the results are not met. Why is that? So if we are making sales calls and we don't get the results, is it because we don't get enough contacts, or is it because we don't make enough calls? You see, those are two different things, and we need to do different things to fix it. And as a sales manager, I can step in and start fixing things before the results come back and bite me in the ankle at the very end. So I can go in and I can decide what I'm going to do. Am I going to go and fix the call list, or am I going to teach somebody about time management? What? So when I do that, then I also compare my results to benchmarks, conversion ratios, with what efficiency I'm converting one step into the other. Now, what I put in here is just kind of, these are general benchmarks. You need to build your own. But if you know the steps you need to take, how one step leads to the other, and how efficiently you can do that, then you really have an activity plan, and then you can monitor that. Now, that sounds easy, like, hey, Sandy, yeah, fine, you're saying this. Does it work? Well, let me show you how it works. When I was at Raiffeisen Bank, we bought a bank in Romania, Banca Agricola. And we looked at it and we said, okay, we really want to boost sales. And the easiest way to do that is to build a sales machine, to put it in place. So this was a really black and white example. Before, they had nothing. They had kind of ad hoc sales. Then we put in the sales machine, activity planning, activity monitoring, and we started doing that. It wasn't very sophisticated. It was all paper-based. We had no systems, nothing. But look at what happened. I'm going to show you 3 slides. First, about business results. Second, about how customers reacted. And the third one, my favorite, is what it did to the salespeople. So the first one, business results. This is a black and white again, very simple comparison. We are starting a campaign here, and here we are using the activity planning methodology. Here we are just telling them, go ahead, do it, we support you. When we actually do the planning and the monitoring and the tracking and the intervention, looking at daily results, weekly intervention points, etc., this is the results that we get. So that's the difference it makes in terms of business. Do people love it? Yes, people love it. Customers actually told us they love it. We looked at customer satisfaction. And in the test area, you can just compare the green, the very satisfied customers. You see, people came back and they said, oh my God, you are actually caring for my business. You're coming to me proactively. You are asking questions. You're following up. People were following the process. So they loved it. Now, I told you the first slide is my favorite. Let me show you what happened here. What you're seeing here, and I'm sorry, this is a somewhat complicated slide, but I explain. What you are seeing here is at the top is the overall sales results, and there are two components to the sales results. Okay, the maroon part at the bottom is what the salespeople are generating on their own, and the blue one, the top part, is what they are generating with our help. This is what happens. At this point, we start the sales machine. And to make sure that the sales machine works, we are giving them a lot of central support, giving them names, giving them tools, pushing in processes, lots of hand-holding, okay? And that is bringing in the results. You can see that the central support is really kind of delivering. They are also delivering more. This part is going up, but it's really the central support that's making the difference. This is where they were before. Okay, so they are improving, but the central support is really doing its job. And then what happens is the central support goes away. We used up all our lists. We have now given them all the tools. We have nothing else to help them with. And then the results decline. And something magic happens, totally magical. Salespeople got used to success. They got used to the idea that they are delivering results. And then they say, hey, I don't like this. I'm going to do something to deliver more and more and more. And what's happening is once they tasted the success, they don't want to give it up, and they start doing things the right way. And they start delivering the results. So what you see at the end is the maroon part, which is purely the sales planning, the sales effort that they are doing themselves is overtaking everything. So we have shown them how to be successful, and they are using the process. So this is how it works. That's why it's my favorite slide. Now, we don't have time to actually practice this, because to practice building a sales machine is about a half-a-day workshop. But I wanted to leave some slides with you that you can then have, you can print out, and you can use. And here is the hypothetical situation. There is a new market that opens in your area, and you want to get at least 20 new loan customers, these small traders who are selling at the market. There are about 250 traders at the market. And there are all sorts of activities that you can do, walking around the market, gathering contact information, talking to them, visiting, making pitches, etc., etc. What you need to do is build an activity plan that will get you to these 20 sales. And you can just use a standard conversion ratios for efficiencies between the different steps, and then you can see whether or not you can do it. So I listed up 10 assumptions to help everybody to do the exercise. How long does it take to do this, to do that, how many working days you have. So you need to read through this carefully. And then to help you more, I've put in a planning template, because this is how you do it. There are key activities, what you can do, and there are the days over which you can do it. In 2 weeks, there are 10 working days. And then you can see how much time you want to spend in information gathering, first contact, phone calls made, etc., etc. How many of these things fit into 7 hours in a day? And then you need to keep in mind that obviously you need to make a contact first before you can follow up. You need to talk to somebody on the phone before you can set up a meeting. You need to have the meeting to be able to pitch. And there is some erosion as you go through all of this. But you need to do certain things first, and then certain things following that up. So my suggestion would be to you, take these slides, okay, take these templates, and go through the exercise. Don't do it on your own. Sit down with a colleague, and the two of you together, go through this thing. There is, a situation, a scenario. There are some assumptions, And then you fill in the template the best possible way you can. And then at the end, take a look. Okay, so did you have enough prospects? Did you have enough time? Did you schedule it right? What did you learn? Okay? By the way, I will give away the punchline. The punchline is, yes, you can do it. Okay? So if you come up with a result that says, oh no, it's impossible to do it, don't believe it. Just go back and do it again. Now, once you've done it with your colleague, you have learned how to do activity planning. If you have different conversion ratios in your bank, use those so that you have a very real example. And once the two of you could do it, then you think about how you can push it out there and how you can teach all your sales managers to do it and do it with their people. And once they have done it with their people, then you have built yourself a sales machine. And then you've got it. You know what you need to have in place to have sales capability, and you know where to focus because you have done the self-diagnostics. You know what sales models you can use based on your business and the market, your level of development. So you choose the right model. And then you build a sales machine, activity planning and monitoring using leading indicators to deliver using that sales model on your results. If you got that, ladies and gentlemen, you got yourself one wonderful business. Sorry about not being able to go through everything in a very detailed way, but as I said, just to do the sales machine would be a half-a-day workshop. It's a fun exercise. If anybody would like to have more help, there is my email address. But now I will stop and I will ask you if there are any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sandy. And we know always time constraints. You want to go through so much more. So, but we're on time, and we have time for a lot of questions that I hope we already started getting some. So I'm going to go over them, but I just want to let everyone know that the PowerPoint presentation, along with all the templates that Sandy has prepared, will be shared with you. So you are going to get that, and you can print the templates out, and then you can have the activities that Sandy suggested. But please share your questions with us. We're going to start taking them one by one. So if you can write them down in the questions toolbox. I am just going to start with the first question that we received. So very enlightening, and from this session we are considering deploying the hunter-farmer model to push a very good new group loan product. We have just launched and had a massive demand for the first 3 months, and then the demand dried out. Can we possibly contract a temporal sales force as hunter to recruit new groups and pass them over to our relationship manager to underwrite their loans and manage the relationship? What are your thoughts in this?
The answer is very simple, and the answer is yes. See, one of the advantages of using the hunter-farmer model is that it teaches the organization how to capture leads brought in and build a relationship based on those leads. The hired third-party sales force is the extreme end of the lead generation, when these people are not even your employees. And I always say, before you start using a sales agent network like that, you need to have experience with the hunter-farmer model in-house so that you know how to handle the process and what to watch out for. If you have already used the hunter-farmer model, then there is enough, or there should be enough, organizational learning on how to handle the process and what to watch out for. Obviously, the key issue here is to balance acquisition efficiency with credit quality and credit risk. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to look at allowed and not allowed activities, who can do what. The third-party sales force, the sales agent network, should very clearly focus on acquisition should not have any ability to approve or underwrite anything. They should be given some guidelines, and they should be bringing in people within those guidelines so that you got a baseline for credit quality. It's also very important that if they bring people in within those guidelines and you don't approve those people, or the credit goes sour at the end, you do not hold them responsible. You do not hold the sales agents responsible for bringing them in, because as long as they are adhering to your guidelines, it is your decision. So you do not demotivate them by giving them hell. Why you brought me bad quality clients if your guidelines allow for that? So it takes some careful planning on how you set those guidelines, and you may actually go through one or two test iterations, you know, for doing it this way for a couple of weeks and that way for a couple of weeks, and how it works until you can set those guidelines. But obviously the answer is yes, you can do it. If you already use the model, then you should have enough organizational learning to be able to do that. You just need to be careful to balance efficiency with credit quality. But keep in mind, once you give these guys guidelines, it is your responsibility. As long as they stay within the guidelines, they have done a good job.
Thank you, Sandy. Next question. Aren't we opening the poaching market in the hunter-farmer model? We might be running the risk of the agents referring the clients acquired to competitors for better commission level.
Well, and you are also running the risk, if you are training your salespeople to be better salespeople, that they will be more valuable to the competition and they will be poached. So, so what's worse? Sorry, hypothetical question, really. Look, every time we do something, there are risks attached with that. We try to mitigate that risk. With our own people, when we train them, we try to mitigate the risk of them getting poached by giving them a working environment that is very motivating, so they would not want to take their fresh learnings to the competition for slightly more money. With an outside sales force, what we do is, first of all, I always try to strike an exclusive contract. So if I'm taking the previous example, I have a new loan product or whatever, and I want to sell that, then okay, I strike a contract with the agency that is managing these salespeople that, okay, these are your objectives, and these people you bring to us. You cannot take it to anywhere else. When I'm dealing with a sales force that is going out there and just kind of gathering clients and giving them to whomever gives a better product or better price or whatever, then it's not really a contract sales force. Then what I'm really doing is I'm dealing with brokers. So we need to be very careful in our mind. Are we dealing with a broker type setup, or are we hiring a contract sales force? When I'm hiring a contract sales force, it is usually a good idea to have a company that runs that contract sales force. But many banks actually start out with they themselves hiring each individual contract person as a contract sales guy or sales gal. In that case, obviously, there is exclusivity. If I'm hiring you, you are my hiring you on a contract, okay? So if I'm hiring you on a contract, then obviously I expect exclusivity. So you cannot give this thing to anybody else. If you do, I fire you. So that's the first thing. Then the next one is, when I'm having too many of these people whom I hired, then it's actually a good idea to set up a handling company that would manage these people. In many countries, these companies actually exist, and they kind of lend you a sales force. So then you can strike a contract with them, but again, you need to bring in the rules of the game, exclusivity, who they give to you, who they give to somebody else. When you're dealing with somebody who just says, hey, I got people who can bring you new customers, I would be very careful with that, because that's kind of like a broker sales force and not a contract sales force. And that's a big difference. And I'm more careful about brokers than about contracted sales agents. Now, I don't know if I managed to explain it. There are a lot of angles to this, and I hope I gave you a few ideas what to watch out for. But
Thank you, Sandy.
that's the approach. Yeah.
Since we're almost running out of time, I just want to keep the answers as short as possible so I can just have two more questions that are related to the one that I just said. So there is a follow-up question. Do you pay them upon acquisition or upon referrals? And if there is rejection, do you pay them? So this is the same person that asked the previous question. So I just want to finalize this.
Okay, so acquisition and referral in the case of a contract sales agent is pretty much the same, because this sales agent would bring in somebody and would hand the person over to someone, to an employee of the bank, who is actually authorized to open the account to disburse the loan. So you can call it referral, you can call it acquisition, it doesn't really matter, okay? The only difference could be that if I'm referring a person who does not get booked, which is kind of the second question. Mm-hmm. And that is what I talked about in the previous answer, that if you give guidelines, a framework to these people within which they need to bring in newly acquired prospects or potential prospects, then you pay them if they bring people in within those guidelines. So you have to be careful about setting the guidelines very well. But if they bring somebody in within the guidelines, then they have done their job, whether or not I actually book the person, whether or not I actually disburse the loan. So pay attention to the guidelines you're giving to them.
Great. And thank you very much, Sandy.
Question referral booking goes away.
Yeah.
It's not an issue anymore.
Great. So I think we have time for one more question. Is there a difference based on your experience in client conversion rates between the farmer hunter and the farmer keeper models at the sales approval stage?
Sales approval meaning credit approval, I assume. So we are talking about that. Yeah, because in other cases there is really no approval process coming in. And the answer is, if the model, if the hunter-farmer model is designed well, then there is no difference. There are different risks involved in terms of credit risk and the credit approval risks with the two models, slightly different. But if the two models, either model is designed well, then really the model does not make a difference. That's been my experience.
Okay, great. So I'll take another question since we have another 2 minutes, and I want to.
We started a bit late, so okay.
Some recommendations to motivate system for hunter-farmer model.
Okay, so now we are talking about the sales compensation reward motivational system, hunter-farmer. Okay. So this one we need to break into two, because obviously there is the hunter and there is the farmer. So we need to look at what is expected from these people. As I said, the hunter is expected to bring in as many people within the given guidelines as possible. The hunter is usually really well motivated with a straight commission system. Now, when I design the straight commission system, if I am building my my own contract sales force, so I'm not using a company to give me these people, then what I need to do, I need to think about starting up these people. So in terms of the motivational system, I need to put in place a compensation system that starts with a big component of straight salary to make sure that they can survive the initial few weeks when they are not bringing in enough people. Then I'm switching through a draw system to a full commission system. And please bear with me, a draw system means that I'm giving them money based on the assumption that they will bring in a certain number of people within the guidelines. And if they do not do that, then I have a clawback at the end. So the next month, I will give them less money because I'm taking out what I gave them, but they did not deserve in the previous month. It's called a draw clawback system. And then within 3 to 6 months, I'm switching to a full commission-based system, okay? That has been found the most motivational system for hunters because it gives them security upfront, gives them time to learn, but then switches into 100% delivery-based, efficiency-based compensation system. So that's that. And if I would suggest to whomever asked the question, please send me an email, then I can give you more details on this one. But to get into it, how to design that system, it would take way too long. Now, with the farmers are our own employees. So I look at the kind of activities that I expect from the farmers, and I would normally look at things like, okay, the conversion of the people that the hunter brought in, the service quality that I'm delivering, so how happy the customers are, and then what is my stickiness, what is the retention rate for the portfolio and for the people. Those are 3 key indicators that I would normally track. And then I would take those 3 key indicators and I would put them into a balanced scorecard where I'm balancing short-term and long-term key performance indicators. And that is how I would motivate the farmers. And obviously something like a customer service quality is a long-term indicator, a booking rate is a short-term indicator, and retention rate is a medium-term indicator. And that's why I need a balanced scorecard. And again, if the person who asked the question would like more information, just send me an email and I will send some stuff over about balanced scorecard, okay?
Great. Thank you very much, Sandy. Sorry to everyone attending for going a bit above our normal time, but I just wanted to get all the questions, and there was a lot of information and questions from all the attendees. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. Sandy, again, thank you for the great presentation and for taking all the questions in so much detail. I think everyone appreciated that. So please feel free to reach out to Sandy, to his email, or any other questions to us, to CapPlus, for any support or anything needed. Again, thank you for attending, and we hope to see you again in our next webinar. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick question before everybody goes. Are you guys going to, you're on social media, is there a follow-up platform or anything where people can send questions in, or is it just direct to me? It might be good if everybody else could see the questions that anybody is asking. That's why I'm asking.
We usually post the questions later on if there is a lot of questions received, but usually it's more on a personal basis.
Okay, good. I can do it either way. So guys, any questions, keep them coming. You got my email address, and I do respond to my emails. Thanks a lot. And talk to you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.